You're watching UATV News. My name is Ina Kosinska. Good evening. Memory of the liquidators of the Chornobyl accident was honored in Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky laid flowers at the memorial sign to the Chernobyl warriors and the memorial mound to the heroes of Chernobyl. The head of state and participants of the ceremony with a moment of silence honored memory of those who died during the fight against the consequences of the largest man-made disaster of the 20th century. On December 14, 1986, the construction of the first sarcophagus over the destroyed 4th Power Unit was completed. More than 650,000 people took part in eliminating the consequences of the accident. Expansion of international cooperation for the sake of achieving peace in Donbass, the effectiveness of economic sanctions against Russia and support for reforms in Ukraine by Western countries. These topics became the main ones during the roundtable within the framework of the Agenda for Peace expert platform, which was organized by the Dom TV channel. It was attended by experts and diplomats from Europe, the USA and Canada. During the discussion, the participants noted the conflict in Ukraine has not yet been resolved since Russia refuses to comply with the Minsk agreements.
Russia wants to keep the conflict going because it puts pressure on Ukraine. And I think that Western governments need to see that very clearly and to be very clear about forcing President Putin to at least recognize Russia's responsibility in order to negotiate a solution. If Russia does not want to solve this, they won't do so. And the Ukrainian government and Western governments can wish for peace all they want, but it is really in Putin's hands to stop the war.
At the roundtable, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Reintegration of the Temporarily Occupied Territories of Ukraine, Alexei Reznikov, noted that the Ukrainian government is ready and is already moving along the path of reforms. In particular, laws that are aimed at the occupation and reintegration of Donbass will have to be approved soon.
The global plan is a judicial solution to many accumulated problems. We have almost finished work on the transitional bill. The second block is the strategy of economic development of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, which is now at the stage of consolidating the concept. It will be approved by the Cabinet of Ministers this month. And on the basis of this concept, presidential decree and subsequently the new law will appear, which is to regulate the introduction of a special regime. Now there is a discussion whether it will be a free economic zone or a zone of parity development.
Watch the full version of the Agenda for Peace roundtable discussion on our YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as on air by the UATV and Dom TV channels. St. Andrew's Church was opened in Kyiv after 11 years of restoration works. From now on, services will be held there every Sunday and on holidays. The rest of the days, it will work as a museum. Our correspondent attended the opening of the monument.
First visitors of St. Andrew's Church are welcomed with the music of the Baroque era performed by the Kyiv New Era Orchestra. Everyone could hear compositions of the time when the architectural monument was erected. Restoration of one of the most famous Baroque monuments in Ukraine began in 2009. It was held in 3 stages: strengthening of the hill on which the temple stands, restoration of the facades and work upon the interiors. The restorers have recreated the masterpiece of the architect Francesco Bartolomeo Rastrelli to the details.
Ми знаходили ті крупиночки, які є в історичних джерелах.
We found small pieces that are in the historical sources of interior decoration. The color of the walls, how the entrance plates look like. Out of 39 restored icons that adorn the world's only iconostasis by the great Italian architect Rastrelli, 13 were mixed up. The canonical program was broken. And thanks to our employees, our scientists, we managed to restore it. Today you can admire it for the first time after restoration.
Minister of Culture of Ukraine Alexander Tkachenko is sure that this is not the last large-scale project of restoration of cultural monuments. Next year they plan to launch the presidential program Big Restoration.
Програма розрахована на кілька років.
The program is scheduled for several years. Following the example of many Eastern European countries, we know that the beginning of such large-scale restoration never ends in principle. The main thing is to start it. The main thing is to speak out, to have funds to attract private investors. This is not only the preservation of heritage, but also the attraction of a large number of people, tourists, including such bright monument of history as St. Andrew's Church. On December 13, the first church service was held in the temple, and starting from December 15, the church will be open to visitors. Reported by Nick Starkov, Yulia Krychkova, UATV News.
Track and field athletics, powerlifting, archery, swimming, indoor rowing and road cycling. Military men who were injured or have chronic diseases competed in these sports. The Invictus Games Unconquered 2.0 were held online this year. Our correspondent will tell you more.
President's wife Olena Zelenska went to congratulate and support the participants of the Invictus Games Team Ukraine 2.0.
We're talking about the fact that adaptive sports, inclusiveness, accessibility should become the norm for our society. That is why your example today is invaluable. You demonstrate not only sports achievements, the most important thing for society today is your inspiration.
More than 60 servicemen and veterans from 15 regions of Ukraine competed in 6 sports. Mostly they were beginners. Because of the quarantine restrictions, each participant recorded the achievement and sent it to judges.
Здесь выступали практически все аматоры.
Almost everyone who participated here are amateurs, because professionals have a rather different level, different training methods. Our task was to attract people to play sports, raise the level of motivation. Conducting competitions online is a novelty in Ukraine. Therefore, it was necessary to learn from foreign colleagues.
In fact, we were the second to organize online competitions, while the first was the USA. We saw how they do it and understood how we can improve it. We can attract more attendees, we can make it a cool event.
The winners got their medals. The results of the Invictus Games are available on the website, and the team of the Invictus Games 2.0 had to go to the competition in The Hague in spring. However, because of the coronavirus pandemic, it was postponed for a year. Reported by Nick Starkov, Inessa Zanina, UATV News.
Some 18 million fir trees and pines are planted annually in Ukraine. Each year, foresters prepare about 1 million of them for the New Year holidays. Our correspondent saw how they're being prepared for sale.
Alexei shows the trees that have already been prepared for the new year. To grow such a tree, one needs to work hard. The top is cut off so that the side shoots appear and the crown is formed. Agro-technical works are also carried out on the plantation to prevent wedding and unwanted vegetation. Some 10 years pass and we get such a New Year's beauty. The fir tree is a rather demanding plant in comparison to the pine. The forester says special soil and watering is needed. About 2,000 hectares of land have been allocated in Ukraine for plantation of the coniferous beauties. About 13 million of fir trees are planted. The forestries do their job right. It's an absolutely correct environmental activity. It's a non-stop exchange of plants. Foresters ask Ukrainians not to buy New Year trees in poacher places. When purchasing a fir tree or pine to decorate for Christmas, it's important to make sure that it has a special barcode. This is a fir tree which is ready for sale. It has such markings as a barcode, and this barcode allows you to identify its origin. One can find out the addresses of the sales points of New Year trees in every locality of Ukraine on the website of the Ministry of Ecology. Reported by Nick Starkov, Inessa Zanina, UATV News.
The residence of St. Nicholas has opened in Lviv. Until December 19th, children and adults can not only ask him for the desired gift, but also talk to him personally. The fairy tale house is located on the outskirts of the city in the forest. Our Lviv correspondent visited the residence.
My dear elf, have you fed our rabbits? St. Nicholas, together with his elf assistant, meets the children at the doorway, and they are invited to the fairy tale house.
Where is St. Nicholas? You see him?
This year, St. Nicholas receives visitors at his residence in compliance with quarantine norms, with a protective shield on his face, and communicates with children keeping a social distance. Come on, let's have the air kiss. That's great. Usually children ask for remote-controlled cars, constructors and dolls, says St. Nicholas. This year they write letters with unusual wishes. A little girl had just written me a letter. Dear St. Nicholas, overcome all viruses and present me please address. Ruslana comes here with her sons for the third year in a row. The boys are preparing for the visit. They are learning a poem. I look forward to St. Nicholas. When it gets dark, he comes. No one has seen him yet, and he puts gifts and books under the pillows.
Нам дуже тут подобається.
We really like this fabulous atmosphere here. Friendly Nicholas with his elves.
Residents of St. Nicholas receives hundreds of letters with kids' wishes every year. Elves collect them until December 19th, then pass them to parents.
Ми тут переглядаємо.
Here we look through all letters that come every day. There are lots of them. The kids are constantly writing us something.
This residence of St. Nicholas in Lviv works on a charitable basis. Orphans and children with disabilities come here every year and receive gifts, and the residence transfers all the money earned to orphanage and rehabilitation centers.
Let's go!
Reported by Nick Starkov, Yulia Bil, Vadim Dmitriev, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube pages. Stay safe and good night.